Good morning and welcome to today's Power Hour Pop-Up Excel Essentials. My name is Becca Blake and I'm the Director of Communications here at the Chamber. Today's session is the third and final session all about Microsoft Excel. During session 1, we covered Excel basics to help you get started. And last week during session 2, we dove into shortcuts, formulas, and functions. Today, we're going to get a little bit fancier by learning how to turn your data into clear, professional looking charts and graphs. And we're also going to learn how to use Excel to track, plan, and organize things in your business. We are recording today's session and we'll be adding it to the Member Resource Center. So if you ever miss a Power Hour, you can always go back into your Member Information Center and watch that later. And just so that we can leave as much time as possible for the content today and ask questions, I would love for everyone to just put their name and business or organization in the chat so that we know who's here with us today. If you have any questions during the presentation today, we're going to monitor the chat and hold a Q&A at the end. And I think that's all I have. So today's presenter is Rose Hall. She's our Chamber Administrative Assistant and our spreadsheet queen here. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you, Rose, to get started.
Good morning, everyone. Again, as Becca said, my name is Rose, and I'm the administrative assistant for the Chamber. So this is part 3 of a 3-part series. It's really designed to help kind of remove the mystery, confusion, frustration out of spreadsheets. So we offer this series to help everybody better understand how to use Excel to collect data, analyze your business, and make smarter, more informed decisions. Because when you know your numbers, you can grow your business with confidence. So we'll do a quick recap of what we've covered the last couple of weeks. As with the other 2 sessions, I'm working in the desktop version of Excel. Everything we do can also be done in the web-based version. So if you have questions on how to find something in the web-based version, feel free to pop that in the chat and we'll look at questions kind of as we go. All right, so the first week, we talked about the interface. When you first open Excel, this is kind of the screen that you're going to see. On the left, you see icons for opening a new document or opening an existing document. Across the middle, at the top, you'll see options for blank workbooks or opening a template. In the very middle of your screen, you'll see all the recent documents that you've opened. And then down here at the very bottom of the screen, you'll see account and options. When we look at the options screen, you see different options for live preview. Live preview lets you hover over different formatting options just to kind of see what it looks like without actually having to change it. The next thing that we talked about was collapsing the ribbon. I like to leave mine open just so I can see what options are available to me at any given time. We talked about screen tips. Screen tips is something that we'll also kind of look at a little bit today. This will allow you to hover over an option in Excel and it will tell you what that option does and when you should use it. We also talked about how you can set the default font to be larger or smaller, depending on what your preferences are. I typically leave mine right here at the default, but that's, if you like it bigger, make it bigger right there. We talked about the differences between a workbook and a worksheet. A workbook is an Excel file that can contain one worksheet or many worksheets. A worksheet is a single spreadsheet that's contained within a workbook. Your workbook, again, can contain one single spreadsheet or it can contain multiple spreadsheets. We also learned about the parts of the spreadsheet. These are all kind of listed here. We won't go through all of them, but we will just quickly review. These are your menu tabs. We'll be looking at these today. And then this is your ribbon right up here across the top. And each one of these menu tabs will show different options on your ribbon. On your ribbon, you've got different sections, like this is the number section. This is your alignment section. What's your font section, so on and so forth. So we'll be using some of that lingo to describe where you're going to go today. Last week, we learned a whole bunch of keyboard shortcuts. Hopefully, you've been able to use some of those, not only in Excel, but these will transfer over to other Microsoft programs. So you can use the copy and paste and undo. You can use those in Outlook. You can use them in Word. Multi-uses for all of these. Okay, so we're going to get started with our new stuff. So a lot of times whenever you export data from a whatever CRM or customer management software that you use, it's going to come out and it's going to look kind of jumbled up like this. It's going to come out in a CSV file. A CSV file stands for comma separated value. It's basically a different Excel format that lets you bring data in from whatever format it was held into using spaces or certain delimiters to decide what goes in a column and what goes to the next column, so on and so forth. So this one right here, this is just an export of different categories that our chamber members are in. When it exports, it's just going to be kind of messy and kind of jumbled up like this. So all I want to know with this export is I want to know what people are in what categories. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get rid of the information that we don't need. So we're going to click on a column header and we can use our keyboard shortcut, Control minus, and we're just going to get rid of that column because we don't need it. And then I don't need anybody's phone number, so I'm going to get rid of the phone number. I also don't need an email. I don't need their website, and I don't need to know who the contact person is. And I know all of these members are active, so I don't need that either. So now we're down to just what the company name is and what categories they're in. But we still can't really read this. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on our little teenager cell up here to select everything. And then we're going to get our little double-sided arrow here and we're going to double click it to expand out all of our columns. That's going to make all of the columns auto fit to the size they need to be so you can read the data within them. Now, if some of these have lots and lots and lots of information in them, they may come down to like another line within the cell, and you can't necessarily see that like this. So the easiest way to tell if you have data that is like on another line is to come back up here, select this teenager cell up here again, get your double point sided arrow right in between your rows and double click that. And as you can see, it auto fit the height of these cells. So we can see that there is information on additional lines in here. And you can see it did it for all of them. So it did not make these any bigger because they don't have any additional information in them. It did make these bigger because there's a return or a line and more information down here. So now that I've got all of this, I can see from the data that I exported that I have several up here that are not in a category. But that's not what we want. We want every member to be in a category so they show up on our website correctly. Well, we can go through and we can kind of scroll through some of this information here, and let's see who else maybe doesn't have a category. And you can see we have a lot of lines here. So this isn't going to be the best use of our time, just scrolling through to see what we want to see. So we're going to use that Control Home shortcut and go back to cell A1 at the very beginning. And then we're going to select everything and we're going to sort it. Last week, we talked a little bit about sorting. And as I said last week, I like to use the custom sort because it gives me more control on what I do with my data. So with our custom sort here, we're going to say, yes, our data has headers. Our headers are going to be these up here at the top. And then we're going to say we want to sort by primary category. And then once we've sorted it by primary category, I want all of our company names to be in alphabetical order. So we're going to add another level to that. And then we're going to say we want to sort that by company name. So once we've got that decided, we're going to click OK. And it's going to sort all of our stuff. So we're going to see it's going to sort it from A to Z because that's what we told it to do. And we can see everybody who is in the different categories. Now, another shortcut that we learned last week was to go to the bottom of a row, the last cell that has data. So we want to find the ones that don't have any information in it. So we're going to go here in this column C, the primary category, and we're going to do control down arrow. Control down arrow takes us to the last cell that has information in it in that column. Now we can see every member listing below this line right here has no category.
Rose, I had a quick question.
Sure.
Is the spreadsheet that you are working in right now what we are supposed to have?
No, ma'am. This
Okay,
is
just
just
making,
this is just strictly demonstration.
thank you.
So one reason that you would want to export data from your customer management system is for data checking. Your data is only as good as what you have entered. So if you have entered information in your customer management system and it's incomplete, you don't know if it's incomplete until maybe you've exported it and maybe sorted it like this to see where the holes are. So now that we know that all of these here have no primary category, we can take this list right here and we can go into our customer management system and we can update that and put those categories in there. This applies to just about any type of data that you would have in there, whether it be sales data, sales rep, pricing information for items if you have a database of items for sales. Very, very, very useful, super fast to do it. We just did that in about 3.5 minutes. All right, so now we're going to move on to the shared document. So if everybody wants to pull up, if you want to follow along, pull up the Excel document that should be in the chat there. And this is what you will see. This is the end of the document from last week. This is what we ended with. I have not changed anything about this data. So we're going to learn how to turn this into some colorful at a glance information. But before we do that, we need to make sure that all of our headers have meaningful titles because we're going to need them here in just a minute. So let's just kind of go through and see what we can make more descriptive. So let's look at this number column here, column E. Number, that's great. But if we didn't have the data on either side to kind of reference, we wouldn't know what number that meant. So let's update that and we're going to call that number of clients, if I can spell right. And then we're going to hit enter. And then we're going to auto fit the cell contents so that way we can see it. All right, so column E is now number of clients. This total income column, last week we inserted a little a comment that said the total is year to date for 2025. That's great, but it only shows if you hover over it. So we want to go ahead and change this label to total income year to date. And then we'll auto fit that so it all shows up correctly. And then we'll just kind of scroll over here and see if there's anything else that we can update to make it a little bit more meaningful. And yeah, I think that looks good. Okay, so now we're going to insert a chart. We have our first tab here that's called data. So we're going to add a second tab. So this little plus button down here, we're going to add a new sheet or a new tab. I'll use sheet and tab interchangeably here. We're going to insert right here in A1. So if you go to your insert menu over here where it says pivot chart, if you hover over pivot chart, it kind of gives you the description that you use pivot charts to graphically summarize data and explore complicated data. Don't let the complicated data scare you. Basically, if you can think of a pivot chart as the smart chart that kind of does it for you, that's a pivot chart. So if you click on that little down drop arrow, you have an option to insert a pivot chart or a pivot chart and a pivot table. We don't need to insert a pivot table because we have this tab down here that says data that already has our data in it. So we don't need a table because we've already got one. So we're just going to do pivot chart. So if you click on pivot chart, it's going to ask you what data do you want to analyze. So we're going to go and we're going to click this little up pointy arrow here. And then we're going to go to our data tab. Now, as we're clicking, you can see that this information is updating. It's going to record where we're clicking here. And we're going to select A1 all the way over. And let me do that one more time because my window was in the way. 1 second. And then we're just going to fix this because it duplicated it. Okay, there we go. We've got our data selected. Now we don't want to select our totals because our pivot chart is going to do our totals for us. So we only want the actual data. Once we've got that selected, we're going to put our little arrow and you can see that it puts it here. That's our table range. And then it's going to ask us where we want to put that chart. We want to keep it in the existing workbook, existing worksheet where we clicked the new sheet A1 and click OK. And then it's going to bring this up. Right here is where it's going to put our graphic. So we're just going to move that over just a little bit because it's going to get a little bit bigger. So the first thing that we want to show on our chart is we want to show how many clients we have per location. So over here on this little window that opens up, this says what fields do we want to add to our chart? Well, we want to know client type and location, and we want number of clients. And as you can see, it just popped all of that information right here in the middle to show us client type and client location. So we're done with this over here for now, so we can close that. Before we go too much further, let's rename our sheet so that it's meaningful. We're going to call it clients per location, and then just hit enter. And I spelled clients wrong. There, clients per location. So it's automatically going to copy this data over here. You do not have to keep this data. You can delete it. It's fine. If you want to keep it, you can, but you do not have to. It's going to pull all of the information for this table from your data tab over here. So if you change the data over here, it's going to automatically update your chart right here. So there's different formatting options that you can use with your chart. For now, we're just going to leave it exactly as it is, and we're not going to change it. This is a very, very simple, basic Excel decided what I needed and did it for me. It's descriptive, it gives totals, there's numbers along the side. We can kind of tell what it looks like. So we're going to add another one. So let's click the little plus button and you'll see we'll get another sheet. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to come over here to insert up here at the top, pivot chart, and pivot chart. So we need to select our data. Where is our data going to come from? Click that up pointing arrow, go to our data tab, and we're going to select the whole thing because we want to be able to make whatever kind of chart we want. And as you can see, I did not select our totals down underneath, just the data itself. Once we've got that selected, click our down arrow. Where do we want it? We want it on sheet 2, and then click OK. So for this one, I want to know how many full-time and part-time employees we have per client type and location. So we'll come over here and we'll click on client type and location. And we're going to click on number of clients. We already did that one. Let's do, here we go. Average full-time and average part-time employees. So as you can see, Excel saw that we have 2 different kinds of clients, or I'm sorry, 4 different kinds of clients, but we have 2 different types of employees. We wanted our number of employees to be over here on the left, and then we wanted our client types to be down here on the bottom, and then we wanted our 2 different kinds of employees to show right here in the middle. So just at a glance, what this tells me is that number one, I have way more full-time employees than I do part-time employees. And it also tells me that I have way more full-time employees working on the commercial side versus the residential side. So let's close this and we're going to do a little bit of work on our chart to make it look a little bit better. We're going to come over here and we're going to delete this because we don't need it. So just highlight it, do your control minus, and we're just going to move the cells up to get rid of that. And there we go. That data's gone. I'll make this a little bit bigger. There. So we are going to change the colors and change the style. How about we make it there? That's good. I like that. That's better. So we're going to go with it selected and we're going to click on chart design. Under quick layout, we can bring those titles back. We can change kind of where the legend sits. Any one that we want. So I like this first one because it gives a nice big chart title up at the top. The legend is over here on the side. It's very easy to read. So I want to rename this chart. So we're just going to click and highlight it. And we're going to rename this number of employees. And then click away from it. So now we have a chart that looks kind of pretty. It's labeled number of employees, but I don't really like that title. So let's come over here to our data tab. And let's change that to say full-time employee. And let's change this one to say part-time employee. Let's rename our chart. Number of employees. And there we go. So let's do another one and let's see how many people we have had join our service and how many people we've had drop our service. So let's add another insert pivot chart. And we're going to do our data. Click on your data tab. And click our down drop arrow here and click OK. Don't need that formatting right now, so we're just going to leave it right like this. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger. And then we need to choose our items that are going to go in it. So let's do client type and location. And let's do drops in 2023 and 2024. So just at a glance, we can tell that we had more changes on the residential side. So maybe this says our commercial line is a little bit more stable than our residential. We had more people drop in 2023 than we did 2024. And it looks like we had more people drop in Missouri than we did in Kansas comparatively. So that tells us quite a bit. Let's see what it looks like when we add more columns. And then let's see what we can do to make that a little bit easier to read. Let's maybe change the type. So we're going to go design. And then let's just hover over a couple of different types. And see which one we like. I do like that one because it gives the numbers. And we can also change the layout over here on this left-hand side. And then let's change the colors. So we're using different color schemes. So you just use the change colors. And I think I like this purple one better. So let's use the purple one. But I don't love that there's so much information here that we can't really tell what it is. So let's come over and let's take off the joins. Let's come over here and let's give our chart a title. Let's call it total dropped clients. And then let's come down here and let's rename our tab. and then hit enter. Now you can do different things without changing the entire format of it. You can add data labels. Here, if you just click on the column and right click, it'll, excuse me, bring up this extra little menu, and we can add some data labels. That'll make it so that the actual numbers will show up. And then we'll do that to these here. Add data labels. So those all show up. You can see the numbers, but we still have the format that we like. And we're kind of continuing the same type of format through all of our tabs here. So let's go back to some of our other tabs and let's add these data labels to them too. So if you look down here on the bottom corner, all I see are two. Well, to find the other ones, there's these little arrows right here. Gonna hit your left arrow to take you over to the left, and then to go all the way back to the right, you'll hit your right arrow. So let's go under number of employees and let's add those data labels to that. So if we right click on that column, add data label, and then let's go here and let's add data label. And then go back to your clients per location, click on the column, right click, add data label. So now we have some labels. And let's rename this one. We forgot to do that a minute ago. Let's rename this so it's a little bit more meaningful. Clients per location. And then we don't really need that. That doesn't really tell us anything extra. So just delete that. All right, so we're gonna go, let's add one more. So if you click on your little plus sign, go into insert, pivot chart. It's gonna ask data ranges, so click that up arrow, go to data, and then move our little slider bar back over here. We're gonna select all of our information. And then click OK. And I put our chart right here in the middle. We'll make that just a little bit bigger. This one, we want to know the total income per client type and location. So let's do client type and location. And then we want to know, where's our income? Here we go. We want to know our 2023 income and then our 2024 income. And then if we look at our data here at a glance, we can see that Missouri, we make way more money in Missouri than we do Kansas. Let's change our design so it matches our other ones. We're going to go to quick layout up here in the corner, and we're just going to change it to that right there. And then we're going to change our title, and we're going to do income per client type and location. All right, so we don't need that. Let's close that. And we don't really need that, so we can close that. Let's add some numbers on here. So we'll go to our data labels, and then we'll add our data labels. And there we go. So now that we've added our data labels, I don't love where these labels are. It doesn't really make a difference if we move it down like that. So let's do Control Z to back it up and put it back where it was. So let's look and see if we can find a different format that works a little bit better up here at the top. Oh, I like that. Let's do that one instead. That spread everything out just a little bit. Didn't take much effort on our part. Over here, we have our numbers. Let's say that we don't want the range over here to start at 10,000 and go up to 80,000. Let's say we want to customize that a little bit. So just click on that area. You're going to right click on it. And you're going to format your grid lines. Once you've got those pulled up, it gives you all of these different options of how to format that. So let's do, let me find one that I want to do here. Let's make it a different color. That doesn't make a difference. See, as you can see, you can kind of play with it a little bit and see when it fits what you're wanting. Those aren't really changing anything. Well, it's made a liar out of me, guys. There we go. Access options. We want our minimum, let's say our smallest number here. Let's make it start at 2,000. And then let's make our maximum 70,000.
Rose, can you show us which section you're under or access? Where did you find that?
So if you double click on that,
Mm-hmm.
it'll bring up access options. You want to go to your vertical value on your axis.
I see. Okay, thank you. I got lost.
Yeah, yep, no problem. So now we've changed the values over here and made it so that you can really make that impactful up at the top. Or really impactful showing how little. Then let's rename this so that it's more meaningful. We're going to do income per client type and location. We're out of characters. And location. But I really, really, really want this to be at the very end. I don't want it to be the second one that you come to. So we are going to click and we're going to drag it. As you can see, you've got the little arrow that's moving around. We're going to drop it here. And now we just move that tab to be at the very end. So let's go back to our clients per location and let's see if we can make that a little jazzed up. So we click on our chart and then let's go to format. Let's go to outline and let's give it a purple outline. So what that did is it put a purple line around the outside of our chart. Now let's say we want to change the inside, our graph itself. Let's do a dark purple line and then a light purple inside. So we just changed the individual element of our graph. Sometimes it is easier to go through and just do some of the preset things. You see how I can kind of hover over this and see what it will look like without having to click on it. That's that live preview that we talked about earlier. I really don't love any of those more than what I created myself, so we're not going to do any of those. But I may want to change the format. I may want to change what it looks like. So if you click that little down drop arrow there, it'll give you some more options. And you can see that it'll put like a shadow on some of these, or it'll make lines. All of these things you could do manually yourself. But as we talked about before, Excel's pretty smart and it knows how to make your data a little bit more readable and make it look better. So let's say I like this layout, but I don't like the colors. Let's go back to, let's do purple. So I like the purple, but I don't like what's inside of it. So we're going to go to format. Once we've got our column selected, we're going to go to the fill. So right now it's got a textured fill. We can just change that texture. It's a lot like changing the background on maybe your email page. That looks fancy. Let's do that. And then let's go to our number of employees and let's see if we can change the shape of that. If you go over here where it's change chart type, click on that. And let's say we don't want to do just a regular column chart. Let's say we want to make this a bar chart instead. Click on bar and it'll give you kind of a little preview of what that's going to look like. If I hover over it, it makes it a little bigger so you can see it. And it'll show us the different types of bar charts, 3D ones, 2D ones. Can do an area chart. That one doesn't really work very well with this type of data. Let's try a pie chart. That looks pretty good. That shows us some pretty good information. We could do it as a donut. That doesn't work very well, so we won't do that. The 3D one is pretty cool, but it's very, very hard to read. So I would caution you against using that unless it's going to be a very large format. So let's just stick with our pie chart. And then click OK. And you can see it just turned our information into a pie. Now we can go and we can change the font size of the numbers. So when they're highlighted, just right click, go to font. And let's make that, let's just make them 12. I still don't like that, so let's make it a 12. And that's a little bit better. Let's see, we want to make our legend a little bit bigger. Just highlight your legend, right click, font, and let's make this a 12 also. And then click OK. So now your legend is a little bit better, a little bit bigger, and you have a pie chart with numbers that are a little bit bigger too. Does anyone have any questions so far? Does anyone want to see a different kind of chart?
Would this be maybe the most common type of chart that we would use, or are there any others that you would suggest?
So I would suggest keeping it simple. A lot of times whenever you insert a chart or a graph, it needs to be, the data needs to be instantly recognized and read like in an instant. You have maybe 3 seconds before you're going to lose the attention of whoever is looking at your data. So this is fun. This is really fun. I like the colors, but it's not super duper clear at an instant glance. This is more clear at a glance. So I would keep the color simple. The regular chart with the columns is going to be the easiest and most common. This is even better. It's got high contrast and not a lot of information to read. You can instantly see it at a glance. Overall, I would say that this kind of chart here is going to be probably the best and easiest to read. But it also depends on your audience and what you're trying to convey. So a lot of times the presenter that holds the data will kind of can show it in a way to get across the point that they're wanting to get across. So if you can get your point across with just a regular old bar chart, or if it seems like you would need a pie chart to do that better, then whichever one is going to work the best for you. I would more focus on keeping the colors simple, keep the fonts simple, high contrast, and not too much data on one individual chart.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, so today we learned, one second. Today we learned about CSVs, or comma separated value spreadsheets, that you would export from like your customer management software. We learned what to do with those, how to read them, how to delete the information that you don't need, and then how to rename the fields so that they're meaningful names. And then we learned how to take information that we already have and turn it into something visual and graphical so that you can present your data in the way that you want to present it. We learned a little bit more about formatting and how to move some of those tabs around, how to rename the tabs, and add new tabs. If anybody has any additional things that they want to know how to do with Excel, or if you come across a problem with any of the things that we learned, then you are always welcome to reach out, give me a call, send me an email, and I'm more than happy to help however I can.